So, give us the one liner. What is Botco and what problem do you solve in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. We're enabling personalized, instant, and accurate conversations between businesses and their customers. And the goal is always really to drive engagement, to drive stronger conversion, and really help both sides, get what they need, get their needs met much more quickly.
That's awesome. So I didn't mention this before we started chatting, but like there's something actually really deeply personal for me about what you're doing because I want to say 2016, 2017, somewhere in there, maybe a little earlier. I tried to do this within a large company. I tried to build out
Cool.
an automated personal conversation system as part of a support plan for our partner network, thousands of partners. Oh, I failed so completely. Like, it was one of those times where you looked at the tech and you're like, this should be possible, right? We have all of this unstructured knowledge, all of this data. It should be so possible to translate that for our partners. And it was not. It turned out to be quite challenging, and we never actually deployed. So my question for you is, when you were meeting at that event, when you were starting to chat with your co-founders, how did you know that it was the right time for Botco or something like it?
It's hard to say. It's like you kind of feel it in your bones. It's hard to explain it, but it's like we had watched, say, marketing technology evolve and customer engagement technology evolve. We went from printed mail to email, right? We saw the advent of social media as a new channel. And a decade later, it was really time for a new interaction channel. And if you just observe, maybe do like an anthropological study of how people prefer to communicate and engage, what are you going to find? You're going to find that people really love texting. People really love that type of, that's why products like Slack have done so well.
Yep.
And so it's like, hey, people already love this mechanism, but why haven't we transferred it into a business application that is really scalable? And so it was time, I could feel that it was time for this new channel to really come of age. And I felt like those of us in the room, my co-founders and I, had the kind of experience and the know-how to bring together something that could really solve this problem.
That's awesome. Well, and you certainly launched into an interesting time. You founded this, early 2020? Is that right? Late 2019?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. When we launched was in 2020. Mm-hmm.
So, how do you feel about the timing from that perspective? Because obviously, for those of us that haven't repressed the memories, things got pretty strange a couple months later.
Oh, yeah, it was right during COVID. I mean, we were part of the first I would call it COVID cohort of Alchemist. Um, yeah, I mean, it was such a strange time. And, in the moment, it was hard to go through, right? We didn't know what was going to happen, if companies like ours would make it or not. It was hard to meet people in person. So it was a little bit, everybody was kind of learning this new way of doing business. But in a sense, I think it ultimately did help us because it created a level of trust in virtual channels and in virtual engagement that perhaps had not existed before because everyone was forced into that same time and approach because of the circumstances of that era.
Yeah, I could imagine that putting a little gas behind you, right? In terms of, oh,
Mm-hmm.
here's somebody building what might be a solution for the era. Um, but what's interesting, if I think about the last few years, that's not the only, I'd say, kind of tectonic shift, right, to impact your business. So you're getting up and running in a world of textual and chat interactions with companies. And then some really significant advances have happened in the last couple of years in AI. All of a sudden, there's the GPT playground, and then there's Chat GPT, and then there's 1,000
Mm-hmm.
folks trying to kind of work in your space. Can you tell me a little bit about that, and how do you think about navigating your
Mm-hmm.
company through a world that is changing around you, both I'd say in reality, but also maybe in perception in terms of what people believe might be possible?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you bring up a good point. You might say, yeah, there's a lot of AI companies, but we're not all trying to do the same thing, and we're actually not all applying it the same way. And I feel like for a lot of companies, they're kind of they're kind of grabbing that low-hanging fruit that's easy, I would say, to access, but isn't necessarily the one that's going to advance enterprises forward. And so you could say that Botco.ai, we didn't reach for the low-hanging fruit. We kind of reached a little bit higher up by saying, hey, we're going to apply our product in industries where the stakes are much higher, right? Where compliance is a thing, where privacy, security, and accuracy are requirements. And because we're going to go into this more, I would say, challenged space, there's going to be fewer people there. And so, yeah, you're right. You see a lot of people at the bottom, right, of that tree grabbing that low-hanging fruit, but we've decided to go up market a little bit more and really think about the true, the true needs within the enterprise of, how do you deliver these conversations in a way that is sustainable, that scales, and that doesn't compromise the business or the customer experience.
Yeah. So you operate in like HIPAA compliant industries, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
What other kind of regulatory frameworks do you have to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, all of my customers are in healthcare, in government, right? We have a couple in the financial services space. So these are industries where, there's no leeway for a lot of error or for a chatbot that goes haywire, right? There really isn't. And so, what our customers really appreciate about our product is the fact that we have taken into consideration those kinds of hardened requirements, that we can meet at this higher bar of performance that I would say you're perhaps, garage variety chatbot might not be able to do.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's a million of these stories, right? But as a Air Canada traveler myself, I saw, the story, I think it was 3 or 4 months ago, but they were held accountable, and I think rightly so, right? For their AI customer service agent making a pricing promise on a fare. Is that sort of thing on the mind of your clients?
Oh, we have that already in our product. So we have a transparency tool in our product. We have an audit trail inside our product, so you can see exactly before you go live with your AI. We have the ability to test the chatbot against an entire data set of questions. We actually automate the creation of these questions, so we almost have like a synthetic set of questions that we know people will ask based on questions we've seen before, based on your industry. And then we can show you exactly where your data sets match up with those questions and how the chatbot would respond in those scenarios. So it's almost like we can test the bot, we can show all the scenarios, we can show the accuracy and the relevance score for any kind of answer based on your data set. And that way, hey, am I well equipped to answer questions around these categories or not before you go live? And then once you go live, we maintain that audit trail so that you can go back and see maybe where the problem was. Did the chatbot answer incorrectly because you had what I would call a deficient data source, or your content was not correct, your source material? And so we can go back, trace it back to the culprit, so to speak, and then repair it if there's an issue. But because we do so much testing and kind of advanced trials before we go live, we can really, really diminish the risk that is associated with some of these chatbot experiences.
That's awesome. I don't even know if this makes sense, but even as you were talking, I was like, oh, like you're bringing, reality in the loop, right? Like you're bringing like real data sets, real customer experiences in the loop. So
yeah, and part of the value of working with a company like ours that's already in production. So, there's kind of like the theoretical and then there's the real, right? We have already facilitated over 5 million conversations on our platform. And because we've been very focused on particular verticals, we have enough of a broad data set around like, okay, we know what customers in your industry are asking. We know all the questions because we've been servicing this market already. And so we can tell a customer before they go live if they're ready or not. We can say, you know what, you're still missing really important information. Like in healthcare, it's always about insurance, about your insurance eligibility programs. Like we should really test this more. We should have more data sets around this before going live. And so we can give our customers that kind of input. The platform will show them where those deficiencies exist so they can address them before going live.